What's up? Okay. So about to get started. I had some big plans to do categories today, but instead I think I'm gonna move on to the single page, like the single record page. Because it'll be a lot more interesting to switch it up in that way, but B, I had this really easy way to do the category filtering, and I forgot there's one little barrier based on how the data is set up here, so I have to modify that function. But I'm gonna do that offline, and then next time we can pop these categories in. They're actually close. I've been trying it out, but I didn't want to spend too much time going back and forth because it's actually kind of deep JavaScript. Once I figure it out, it gets put into the pattern, and then no one ever has to care in the future. It always just works. You bring it in with the pattern. So just wanted to mention that. I'm actually excited about it because it's pretty elegant how it's working. It's kind of cool. I just need to finish it off. And so today, let's do single record pages. So this is the current live site. And right now there's a page for each. So if you click on the link here or on the title, it takes you directly to the software page, which I did that on purpose because I didn't intend for this to be anything more than a list in the beginning. But there is a way with these endorsements to get to like a single record page for a software. And so if I click endorsement here, I come to this page. And what I'm going to do for the new one for this builder version of no code lists is I'll switch it so that more often you get sent to this page because I have more information in the spreadsheet that I'm not even displaying. One example, like pricing, there's like pricing for all these tools in my database. It's just like I barely display it. So I think I'll do more on this new build, but for now, this is what it looks like. And what it does is it has logo, name, and description, but then it has what I'm calling endorsements, which are like comments. This one's just from me on here. But I ask when you submit a comment, so I'm not signed in to no code list right now. If I were, it would let me submit. It just asks you what's great about this software and who's it great for. And you just answer those two questions, and I call it an endorsement. I love the concept of that, but it's not fully realized or it's not fully working. So I'm going to switch that up a little bit. But for today, I'm just going to create the structure of these pages because you can see it's going to pull the record ID from the URL. And then we'll set up the data so that it queries Airtable, gets the full amount of data for this record, and then displays some of it probably. That's probably as far as we'll get. But I'll set up the initial structure, and then what I want to do, I don't really know how it's going to look yet, or like, what's the most important information where, but I just want to switch it up. So, a couple important things that I want to get on here. I want to make sure I keep the endorsements, but I want to list projects that are built with the software you're on and agencies that specialize in the software you're on, because that's really accessible info in my database that people want to see, and it's not displayed anywhere. So I got to figure out the best way to do that, but I doubt we'll have time today. So I'm going to jump in. And just to update you, here's the current builder version. So it's looking pretty close to what the live version was looking like. So if you remember, we've got a couple pages on here. I've got the home page, the card page for each of these cards. I've got a header, which I can include as a component on multiple pages. And then there's a page for these category rows. And there's actually a little page for the categories in the card. Now I'm going to create a new page, which is like a single record page. And I'm just going to create one page in Builder. But depending on the URL, so say it's like slash, what do I have it as actually in here? Slash tools. So it's like slash tools slash something. That something will determine dynamically which tool to display. But everything we do is on one page in Builder. So the first thing I'll do is add a blank page, drop it on the canvas. It's like I'll call it, really to me, what's important isn't like tool, it's that it's a single record page. So I'm actually I'll call it single tool. Just internal anyway, these names, so. All right, and then on this tool page, I need to set up some of the basic structure that I had on the home page. So this is like from the first live stream probably where I set this up. But I have a component to include the header, And then I have a section, which would be like a full width section, and then a container in each section. And the container centers itself as a center column. Those have classes that I put on them and styling that I put on them, and they're going to do things with responsive, and it's universal. So the first step I'm going to do on this new page before I start setting content in is I'm going to set up that initial structure. So, and I could copy it from the other page too. That would be faster, but just to do a refresher, we'll do component first, set the component page to the header, and the header includes all this other structure, but that'll be the same as this page. And now if I change this header here on the page, it updates on the home page and the single tool page. And then the way that I do it is I do a section next. What's going on? Sorry about that. Froze up or something. So I do a section next, and then I put a container into that section that's going to have a specific class. And so to get these class names, I'll just check what I did on the home page. So the main outer sections have a class section no code list, and then the containers right in there have a class container no code list. Pretty straightforward. And so I'll remove the classes it comes with and add my own, And this is a class that I made previously when I made the homepage. So this is like the first little inkling, but you'll see because we put all that upfront time doing the homepage, these other pages we're building out are going to go much faster. Makes sense. So this, I'll just add the, container, no code list. All right, so that's kind of set up there for a header and then a section of content. And then a footer would go below. I didn't actually make the footer yet, but I would do that as its own page here and then as a component. Why not just make this actually? I do this a lot to kind of like set things up, right? So I'll say this is a footer, but I won't really make the footer. I'll just stick a text box on here. There's no reason or advantage to doing this, but it's like now I don't have to remember to put a footer in later. So I can add a component here to the bottom, and this component will be footer. So now it just says footer, and now on this homepage I can do that same thing. That way my structure is just set up. Footer. All right, but moving on, before I start, well, I'll do one more thing to populate data, which is I'm just going to stick like a heading in here. Just so we see something, you know, like this is like a single record page. That'll be the name. But basically, before I go on further, I'm going to set up the system where it reads from the URL and we can click on a card and open the new page so that, you know, the bones are here. And then once that's setting up, it's popping that dynamic variable in. That's how we're going to pull in the rest of the record air table and keep going to fill out this page. So the first step to do that is I need to make, I mean, even if this weren't a dynamic page, I need to make a URL route. So this home is /. If you type /, it's going to go to home. And on the current live site, oh, I forgot, you can't see my URL. It's hidden under here. But the current live site is nocodelist.co/tools/record ID. So the URL route for this single tool page is actually /tools. So I'm going to set that up now, and I'm going to set it up dynamic, which is well, dynamic URLs are a common thing, but the way we set it up is specific to Builder. And Builder will recognize that one part of the URL is a variable, and then it can use it. Whoops, not page headers. So if I go to URL routes, which I can get from, if I'm selected on a page, I get some options up here. I can do the routes. You can see I have / is already here. That's the only route I have. So that's just like typing nothing in the URL, just the /. And if you're not authenticated, it shows the home page. If you are authenticated, it shows the home page in this case. So I'll create a new one for tools. I think I had an S. Yeah. for tools, and because like I don't need people, you don't have to be signed in to see a tool page. The unauthenticated and the authenticated pages will be the same. If you do have users and you do want to hide and show content, this is a great way to do it because it's server side. You know, they won't be able to hack in like some of the membership stuff. I think they're fixing it now, but you know, you can see it if you know how to inspect and move JavaScript around. This is kind of cool because it's server side. So, but in this case, we're not even using it. In this case, I'm going to show the single tool page, whether they're signed in or not signed in. So I select those, and that would be normally the route's done. If you go to /tools, it opens a single tool page. But this is a special one, like I said. So I'm going to go in here to the details and check this dynamic page data. And now you can add mapping. So if this were coming from a data collection in Builder, I can choose the data collection. I don't have any in this project. I only have the users, which comes with it. You can choose the collection, choose the part of the URL and the field from that collection, and then Builder takes care of everything else for you. So the next step I'm about to do, I'm gonna like pull a variable from the URL, query Airtable. That's all automatic if you're using Builder collections because you set it here. So by setting, basically you're just telling it which part of the URL corresponds to a field in the database. Then when you open that page, it's gonna have all the fields from that record as variables by default, all their values, and you can use a current record value setting, so you can do a lot more. In our case, because the data is not coming from Builder, I'm just setting up. I don't actually need to add any mapping. I'm just saying this is a dynamic page data. So anything after tools / anything is dynamic. And then I'll be able to, inside of Builder, you know, separate the URL route, I'll be able to pull that out. So in that case, that's all I need to do there. And now tools, so we get tools up here in live view. We can test this basically because nothing's happening on the page. So even if there's nothing after tools, even if it's blank, it should still display the tools page. Sorry, it froze up. It's been doing that. I think it was doing that last time too, where it freezes up. I'm just gonna give it a second and then refresh. I do feel like it's slightly my browser's fault. My just having this open constantly. But we'll see. Maybe I'll close everything out and reset it up for next time. Man, this is slow. I apologize. All right, so it worked. /tools showed this page. You can see there's a lot missing. Font, background color, but some of the stuff works. Like these drop downs still work. And then I just want to double check that about the dynamic part. So you can't see my URL on here, but I'm typing gibberish after tools and it still loads tools. So we're good to go. Let's see. That maybe I can show you the URL. Oh, can't. I have it set to on Twitch to cover the URL while I live stream. Oh yeah, maybe it did show you that. Well, the URL is /tools/gibberish. And so that's what we're going to use now. Now I know that works, so now I'm ready to use it. So if I go back to the single tool page, the first thing I'm going to do to make sure we can use this is I'm going to pull that value from the URL and then display it. I'm just going to change single record name to display that variable. And I'm going to do that just on page binding, which runs when the page is initially loaded. It runs page load and page binding. I'm just going to set an action in here to set value. And when I do these kind of actions where I'm just testing something, and it's the fastest ways to do it, I usually call it debug like this. That way I know I can always delete a debug. I know debug's not essential to the functioning of the app. So that's why I would just write debug there. And then what we'll do is we'll change single record name, and we're going to change it to one of these input types you have. You have request and system, which are kind of like they do things with a URL or like the screen size or the settings, or you know, you can kind of, well, I'll show you some of them. So request, which is what we're going to use, you can get a segment number, you can get query string like question mark project name equals. Well, I forget you can't see my URL. Like in the Builder Studio, it uses a query string, or I can use segment numbers. And then this system is similar but different, where you can get like the URL, href, the subdomain, domain, all this stuff about the browser, current date time. So these are useful, and they're at the bottom of these input types. In this case, we're going to use request, and it's a segment number. And I think, as I'm doing this live, I think it's going to be segment number 0, because it starts counting from tools, which is the URL. It might be segment 1, like tools is 0, and then this is 1. I'm not sure. So I'm going to try segment and segment number 0. And what this should do is it should set this single record name element here from segment 0 in the URL. And segment 0, so it's going to say tools/gibberish. Whatever I type in that gibberish should appear as the name. So right now I just set it to ASDF, and it worked. So and I think I was looking at my screen and it was a little delayed. Let me just double check. I think this will show you the URL, because it's a little easier if you can see it. Yeah, okay. So tools, and then /ASDF, and it loads ASDF. Tools/anything with a typo, and it'll write anything with a typo in here. So that's how that's going to work. But in real life, we're not going to just output that URL value. The URL value is going to be the record ID in Airtable. We're going to use it to query Airtable. So I know that works. And the next step will be to run an Airtable action. So on the main homepage, we use an Airtable action that I imported from the Airtable pattern. So basically, you don't have to care about how it works. You just use it, and it looks a little like this. You set your API key, which is a secret in here. You type in the base ID of the data you want to pull, and you type in the table name of the data you want to pull. And then there's some other settings, like in here, there's some advanced settings, and you can do more. But that's how the general Airtable action works. The pattern also comes with another action for pulling a single record. So it's very similar, but a little different. And actually, I've been working on this Airtable pattern. So when I first imported the Airtable pattern on the live stream, it didn't have this action. So I went and I added that action into this project. But if you import it anytime in the future, you get both actions out of the box. So I don't have to do much setup there. I just have to use it. So what I can do is I can come over, and I'm going to set up this action on page binding, because anytime the page is rebound or anytime it's refreshed, it'll run this binding. And so anytime it runs the binding, I'm going to first query to Airtable to get the most recent data. So I'll run on page binding, but I'm going to create a new action group first to hold all of the get data stuff. And so this would be, I'm going to keep Airtable in the name so I know, but it's single record data. It's a little different from the other one. And so this get Airtable single record data action group, I can do more in here in case I want to like change out loading screens, or I can do whatever I want grouped in this action group. But for now, it's just going to be this one action, which comes with the Airtable pattern, and is called Airtable get single record data and set into a variable. And so the other action would get all record data and set it into an element, set it into a list of cards or a list of rows. This one gets a single record and it sets it into a variable instead. And then we use that variable anytime we're like the rest of the actions that are executing on the page after it gets them, we just use that variable as our data. We'll use it all over. We'll bind things to it, that kind of thing. All right, so first thing we'll do is select the Airtable API key. So that's a secret, which as a refresher, secrets are API keys and things like that you don't want to share. You never want them to hit the browser, and you never want anyone else to see the value. It's like a password, basically, only different. And so in Builder, there's a section called secrets, where this Airtable API key, I can set a value for each of my deployments. So my development, test, and production, They'll each get a value. And whenever I reference it in the studio, it's just called Airtable API key. But on the server side, in the background, when Builder's executing these things, it will only use that secret. It'll only reveal that secret value like on the server side. It'll never hit the browser. No one will ever see it. So it's a really secure way to do things. And that's, if you don't know APIs, it's actually a sort of a problem with a lot of tools that are client side that focus on the JavaScript side, is you can't hide that secret key. So it's kind of cool Builder can do it. And it's also cool that you can have separate ones for development, test, and production. So when you're doing Stripe and you're using your Stripe keys, you can actually have like a test key when you're in the test environment running test transactions, and a live key in production. So cool setup, but all that is basically just to say that I already have that in there and I'm just selecting it here. And then base ID, I'm just going to copy this. This is coming from the same base as this one. So I'm going to copy the base ID and I'm going to copy the table name. And then over here, I'll just fill this out, table name and base ID. Whoops. And then the Airtable record ID is a unique field to this single action. That's what I pulled from the URL. So we didn't actually, it wasn't filled out with any real record IDs as I was doing that. I was typing gibberish, but that's what it is. Oh, did I not? So I made this action. I brought it in manually. I might have forgotten to set something here. So these are what I'm doing right now. Every action in Builder is contained within your project. So I'm finding this actual action and I'm looking at these inputs. I was on Airtable record ID and it wasn't letting me select an input type. And if I look, none of them are selected. So I either forgot to finish this one or it didn't save. But these are like the options that people are allowed to choose from for this input type. So I think of all the scenarios someone might use this action. In this case, I know I'm going to pull it from request. So I could just select request, but as like an action I made for other people, I think a lot more of these are selected. So I'm just going to select a few, but make sure this is selected. And then I don't need to default it. And then let me make sure that's saved. All right, cool. I had a feeling this would be the same thing for this other one too. All right. So let's see if this lets me. Nice. All right. So that little fix is like, if anything, if you need a small tweak to anything in Builder, you can actually tweak like any component because everything is built from these base level elements and actions that are all in your project. So even if that was set to something else and I just wanted to put my own, I can tweak it for my project and keep moving. It's really cool. In this case, let's see. So we're getting this record ID from request segment number 0. And then we're going to set the response from Airtable into a variable, like a page level variable that we can use anywhere on the page. So I'm going to call it Airtable record, and you can call that anything you want, but the way it works is in the future when we're filling out data on this page, we'll fill it out with Airtable record dot name, Airtable record dot category, whatever. All right, so that's that. I think that's actually all we need to get it in there. And then I'll just output it. I'll just output a different variable in here instead. That's freezing up on me again. There we go. So on this page binding, first I'm going to nest the Airtable action in here. So first, we get this Airtable data. Then I'm going to wait in between. And once the Airtable data comes back, instead of setting this element to segment number 0, we'll set it to a variable. And it was called Airtable record. And the path, which is like the same as saying Airtable record dot, you can just add a path in Builder. Paths are like super powerful, kind of a hidden feature because there's not much interface around them right now, but use them all the time. So path here in this case would be the name of the variable. So I think the software name is called name like that. We'll find out in a second. So it would be airtable record.name. So page loads, binding runs. It's not actually binding anything in this case right now because there's no data in the database, but there actually will be. So page binding runs, then we get airtable data based on the URL, and then we set the value into this heading, this single record name here, just to debug. So if that all works, then we'll know that the variable works, we'll know that outputting it works, and we can go set up the rest of the page. So the first thing I need to do is actually get an ID. Man, what's happening with my computer? Oh, whoops, that's why. That was the builder. I couldn't even tell the builder version from the real version, so I guess that's a good sign. But I don't need that. I have this version open, which is the live version, and I just copied the ID from the URL. And I'll show you how we link that up. You don't actually have to know how to find that or anything. That's just because we didn't set that up yet. But I copied it from there because I know that's right. I'm going to paste it now onto this test page. And with any luck, oh, cool. You can kind of see it maybe in the URL there. With any luck, oh yeah, you can. So it's /tools/ and this is the record ID. So with any luck, it's going to say the name Airtable here because this is the record for Airtable. Nice. So, all right, we're all set up. So the bones are all set up basically. The next step that we do, I know that we have access to all the data on this record now, and there's lots of it. So if you remember, each record has, come on with the scrolling. Something's up on my computer, I apologize. I'm trying to scroll sideways here and it's just really delayed. But point being, there's a ton of columns in here that aren't being used. And because I pulled in that variable into my application, I have access to every single one of these columns. And when I make more stuff in Airtable too, like as I'm building through, a lot of times I'll create columns in Airtable that calculate totals or do different things just so that I don't have to do that on my application end. And then it just spits them right out. I can pull them. So it's like a little tip, which I can show more of that as we populate this. I can show more of where it comes from. But some of the stuff, some of the counts for total comments, total stacks, they come directly from Airtable. And it's kind of just a cool no-code way to do some calculations. So I think for now, since we know that's all ready, I can put a little more styling onto here and start to fill out like what this page will look like. So right now, I've got kind of two columns, and in the left column, there's info about the software. And then the right column right now is just endorsements. So if there are more endorsements, it'd be listed down the page. Like I said, I don't think it's going to stay that way. I think there's much more I can do with these pages. But maybe to start, I'll just set it up, or I'll at least set up this left column where we can pull in the logo, the name, the description, the URL. I'll even do pricing or whatever. And we can just sort of set that up and then set up the background yellow color and the fonts and all that. Oh, and you know, the other thing too that I need to set up is make it so when you click the card, it automatically populates the ID into the URL. Maybe I'll do that quickly first, because that way we can, as we demo this, we can look at the list, click on a card, it'll open any software we want. We can test all the different ones. So let me do that quickly, because that's a really quick thing, and it'll help us debug. So right now on these cards, each software is a card. Right now, the only thing that's clickable on here is the URL, which takes them directly to their site. And I mentioned earlier, I'm going to change that so that more often you're going to the single page. I'll probably keep some kind of direct link to their site because I like that, but more often we're going to send to the page. I don't know how yet. I don't know how it's going to work exactly. For now, I'm going to make it so when you click anywhere on this card, it sends them to the page. So on this outside card container, I'm going to add a click action. So I have some mouse over and mouse leave. I'm going to add a click that's going to send you to the single page. So to do that, I need to create an action group for it. And what it is it's like open single record. That's what I'd call it. And there's an action in Builder where you open a page into a browser tab / window. And you have a bunch of options in here, pretty much anything you need to open pages. So if I'm opening a static page, like just opening a sign-in page or home page, I'll use this. If I'm opening an external page in a new window, I'll use this. Or if I'm using dynamic URLs, I'll use this action. And the way it works is I'm going to open into, I can choose current tab, which is what I want in this case, but also I could choose new tab there. Like if I was sending to the software site directly, I'll do new tab, keep my tab open. In this case, I'm keeping them on my site. So I'm going to open in the current tab. The page root, I can select from the ones I have. So I can just do tools, but I also can come in here and just do text and type anything I want. And then after root text, this is what's going to add on. So tools / something. So I don't know if I have to write the / or not. I'll find out in a second. But what I want here is I want to fill in the ID, the Airtable ID. And these cards, because of the way Builder works, we pull in the Airtable data and then it populates the cards. Each card has a variable for all the columns in Airtable. And one of the columns which isn't visible, but which is on every Airtable record, is ID. So there's a variable on this card called ID by default, and that variable is the Airtable record ID. And so I'm going to use that here. And also that Airtable record ID is unique to each record. So I'm going to use that all over Builder even in the future. So when there's users on here, when there's comments, when there's comments are endorsements, upvotes, whatever's in here, the way that it relates to the Airtable software is with that Airtable record ID. And in Airtable, it starts with REC and then it's like a string of letter numbers. But I know that's always the ID variable. And so here I just use the ID. And what that means is I never have to care about what the ID is. When I click on that card, it's going to fill it out in the URL. And then the URL, it's going to pull the ID from the URL and then display the info. I don't really care anymore what the URL is. So sometimes you might do something a little prettier for a URL. So you might do like a slug or a permalink, they call it sometimes. WordPress might call it that. Where it's the title. So in this case, like it would be the software title, and it would be like /tools /Airtable. And I might convert it to that because it's good to have keywords like that for SEO, or it's like moderately good. But for now, I'm just going to use the ID. And in the future, if I switch to that, it takes a little more effort because you can't have like spaces. So if a software name had a space in it, I have to convert that. If a software name has an apostrophe, I have to convert that. So rather than go through that now, I'm just going to keep it with the ID, which, that's what it is on the current live site. It's nothing wrong with that. So let's see. So we'll go first to the home page. Oh, you know what? I got to add the click event. So this card I'm selected on already. Card, on click, open single record. So now when I click on the card, it opens a single record page. Just refresh just in case. Oh, also, side note, it was taking a really long time to load these. I don't know if this is what fixed it, but I found that I had actually, I was setting like the href or setting the value or something on this link, but it was a text box. I deleted the text box, but never changed the action. So I was getting a bunch of errors on that I couldn't find an element. And I don't know, but I think that might have actually been what was slowing it down. I just noticed it in there and removed it. But it's an interesting point I wanted to remember to bring up on this, because what's maybe surprising for people is that you can cause things like that in Builder. You can like cause it to slow down, or you can cause things based on your configuration, how you build, which maybe seems counterintuitive, but it's actually just like code. I mean, you can definitely break things and be inefficient in code. So the trade-off, it sucks that you can unintentionally slow your site down, but the trade-off is that you have limitless possibility with what you can build because you have all this flexibility. So that's kind of how Builder's approach is. They'll let you break stuff if you choose to set it up that way. So you do have to be a little careful. And in that case, I saw it in the console that I was getting a bunch of errors, so it was really easy to fix. I would have seen it either way, but really I just forgot to delete an action, and so it was trying to run this action, and because there's 300 cards, it's trying to run it for every card. So who knows? But it was good to mention because A, that things like that happen. It's good to be aware of, but B, that even after being really experienced and doing this all the time, like I just missed something so simple. So. But really not a big deal either way. Even if it was left in there, it didn't really hurt anything. Might have just slowed it down a little. So anyway, all that was a side note. Let's click on one of these and see if it opens the tool. And then if that title heading says the tool name. So I'll click on Adalo first. It is opening something. And it didn't work. It just went to the homepage. And the reason is, let's see if I can pull this down. That URL here is tools with no slash and then the ID. So it's an easy fix. Instead of the after root text being just the variable, I'll do a concatenate. And the first part of the concatenate is slash, and then it's the variable. And so now I might not even need to refresh, but I probably do. Yeah, I need to refresh. Once this refreshes, that should work. So I'll do Adalo again. Oh, shoot. It didn't work, but it didn't update. I can see. So let me clear data. It's weird because that was happening last week too. I think something was up with it. But in between, when I was working on those filtering, I was not having to clear any data and everything was fine. So this one might be a little fluke, or maybe I just actually typed that wrong, or who knows. So let me just let this load. And then click on one of these. There we go. Air slate. So that worked. If I go back and click a different one, I don't know why I'm like, doesn't matter which one I click. Drone HQ works. So we're pretty set up now to where we're clicking on these cards, and then it's loading up the page. So that's done. What we'll do now is actually design some of this page. Importantly, I'm going to put a back button on that page as one of the first things, so that now, as I'm testing, I can do this back to list. So back to switching modes a little bit maybe, but back to like page styling. I personally set up a bunch of base styles on like a base class, and that base class gets added to each page that I want it on. So initially this is all white and it's a different font than I want it to be. And I know that's because on this new single tool page, I need to go to page properties and styling, and I need to remove the default page body class and add my body class no code list that I made from the homepage. So that alone should, oops, I might have to clear. I don't know what's up with this clearing cache stuff. It's clearing data stuff. But that alone should get me a lot of the way there. It'll start to look a lot closer. And then I need to make some decisions about how I want this page to actually be laid out, and we'll lay in all the dummy stuff. So, okay, pretty good. I can see the footer is white because the footer has, I created a new page for the footer. It has that default body class on it. So I just need to remove it in this case. But the rest of the site looks good. This stuff popped in. And so I'll do that footer thing really quickly. Ba-doom. And so, yeah, now we can start populating this stuff. And I think, like I mentioned, I'll just start by getting these basics in, and then I'll wrap some layout around it and decide what the best way is. And even like an option for me is like, do I put this white background in here? I don't remember why it's there. And I think it has to do with like readability. And once you're reading stuff, it's different. I don't want a yellow background. But yeah, actually, I kind of like it somehow. So I'll do something with a white background, but I don't need to think of that right this second. For now, let's pop some elements into here for these things. So let me zoom in. So single record name is a name. I'm just gonna call this name for now, and this I'll do placeholders for, like talked about when I was making cards, where maybe I have like gray bars in here or something. But for now, I'm gonna actually write what these are just so I can keep my head straight with what everything is. So I'll make it an H1 since it's the main heading. Call it name, and then I have, I think, a class for no code list. Yep, heading no code list. And then we'll do an image. Probably put that above the name. I don't know if I have an image no code list class. I don't think so. Yeah, I just kept that. Properties for now, I won't fill out. Technically, what I'll do here is I'd put a placeholder image. I don't know if I have one handy, but I would make something for no code list. Like, it has an icon with like a cross tools, so it looks like an emoji, like maybe something like that. But I'd put something in there, and then it's gonna get overridden with data. One thing I can do is remove that width. So image, name, and then there should be a description under here. So I can add a paragraph for the excerpt. I believe it's called excerpt. And then URL. I'll just do that with a real link here. And if you remember on the card, like I might change some of the stuff, but I just lay it in, get everything laid in to start. So, all right. So basically, if I were, wait, can I do this with a variable? So let me try. I'll try to do this with a variable. Basically, if I were coming from builder data collections, I don't have to do anything with actions. I can bind these all to data as elements. So I'd come into name, I would click on data, and I'd be able to choose. So it's a dynamic page from the URL. So it knows which record it is. Like builder knows which record the page is. So all I have to do is come into record value, choose the collection, choose the field. But because I'm coming from Airtable, I'm using variables instead. And so I think I have two choices. I'm going to try this one choice. It might not work. But the choice I know will work is that with actions on page binding, I can use an action that'll set each of these. And so actually what I would do is I'd put it in this get Airtable single record data probably to where the first action gets the data, and then I'll have a bunch of other actions where it sets it into places I want it. Something like that. And I know that would work, but that takes manual setup for each field. The other thing I can try, because you can bind things to data collections, you can also bind elements to variables. So I can try to run on this page binding action. If I run the Airtable action first and then run page bindings, once after the Airtable action runs, the variable exists, then run page binding using those variables, it might work. I don't know if it will, but I'm going to try that first because that way all the fields will be automatic through binding and I won't have to set any actions up. That's weird. There we go. Thumbs up. I think it just needs a refresh, honestly. Hate to say it. All right, so get Airtable single record data is going to run first. Then we're going to wait and we're going to run page binding. And then I don't need this debug action anymore because we're going to do that with binding, or I'm going to set these with another way. So we just run Airtable, then we run page binding. When page binding runs, it goes through each element on the page. And if there's data bound to it, it's going to get that data. So what I'm going to try to do, I'll try just with one field first, is I'll do variable Airtable record .name, like that. And I think this will work. I'm not really sure, but I think this will work. Well, I think actually from there, I could probably just test right here. So this is on Pori. And when I refresh this, it'll look different, but hopefully it fills out Pori. Nice. So that means that worked actually with that binding method, which I kind of thought it would, but I really wasn't sure. So what I can do now is I'm done on the action end. I just run that one action, and now I go into each of these and just bind the field I need. Frozen up again on me, sorry. Come on. This is crazy. Part of the reason I think it might be my internet too is because my preview screen is really delayed more than usual from my live what's happening. All right, so back to here, click on here, and I actually forget if I call this excerpts. Let me check. It's just gonna be slow. This is crazy. Excerpt. That's the description. So I bind this from variable airtable record.excerpt, and that airtable record can be whatever you want. And actually, I'm toying with the idea of skipping that and having it just automatically set all these variables at a page level. That's a little more intuitive, and I probably should do that, so I probably will, but I just haven't done that yet in the airtable pattern. And then link. I guess I want to display the link, so we'll set the display of the link using website. Let's see, airtable record. I think it's not website. I think it's website formatted, but let's see what this does. So it's this is like an unformatted website, I'd call it, where it's referencing. It has the ref no code list. This is like what people click on, but I have another field. So that's website. I have another field called website formatted, where it actually removes the HTTP, removes that ref equals. And that's basically just for visuals. So when I use a link, I use the website formatted to display, to type out, so that's what they see. When they click on it, it goes to website. So let me see. I don't know actually how spaces work in here. I'm going to try to just type a space in there. But I feel like as a coder, I feel like that'll never work. But we'll see. It worked. So Builder just handles the spaces, which is amazing. And makes my life a lot easier. And so that link will work there. I didn't set the href value yet, so it's not a link. But in the meantime, I noticed excerpt did not work. So let me just go check that. Oh, it's case sensitive. So I do need that capital E because my column name in Airtable had a capital E. Nice. And then this image, I should also be able to just bind. So when you bind to something with text, it's usually binding the text. When you bind to an image, it's the src value. It's the image source. So I should be able to do this too. And that image, being able to just call Airtable. Nice, that's the image. So being able to call just Airtable.image like that is actually a little helper that's built into Builder. Normally, Airtable gives you an array that has different image sizes and different things. And Builder cleans that up for you and just changes it to whatever the column name is in Airtable. So, all right, so that's all good there. And then to be extra sure, we'll check a different software. Did I not click on that? Nice. So that seems to work. And it looks a little rough here. And actually, here's a really great thing I caught, which is I do need to put that white background because I wasn't careful with transparent backgrounds on the list. So some of the, because the cards are white, some of the icons and images have white around them like this one does. So I will actually make that background white. Let's see. And then I'm not going to put this pricing in here at the moment because I think that I'm going to have other sections for more of this details. This is kind of random how that's thrown in there. And then below this, I just have a link to endorse and a link to sign up or sign in. So I think what I'll do for now is I'll do the, put this link in for real, put the back button, make this white, and maybe set up 2 columns, and then reassess and see where I'm at. And actually, it's getting to the end of the hour anyway, so that's perfect timing. So on this single tool page, these are all bound, but this link, the href value is not bound. Just the actual text of the link was bound. So I'll set that up with an action. So in the action group, get Airtable single record, after I get the data, I'm just going to do element set attribute. I'm going to wait in between because I'm going to get the data, wait. Then I'm going to set the attribute on the link element, set the href attribute, which is the link. And I'm going to set it to the variable Airtable record dot website. And so after this loads, oh, I forgot one that got to be on this other page. So we got here, and looks like I'll need to control that image a little. And here I can see already when I hover over it that, oh, and actually that might be off the video. Oh no, it's on the video, but right under my picture, it says the full URL, like adalo.com !ref equals no code list. And when I click on it, it works. The only thing there is I want to set that to open in a new window. I don't want to open that in the same, which is a property on this link. So href is a property. Normally I could just set that, but since it's coming from Airtable and coming from that variable, etc., I did it differently. But target is where you set the browser window, so it's defaults to self. If I put it to blank, that's like opening a new window. So that's that for there. And then let's see. So this whole section, so right now this is what the page looks like. I want to put a white background on like the content section, right? Like the header will stay, the header it looks like a yellow background, but the header has no background and showing the page yellow. Then the content section is white, and then the footer is back to no background or yellow. And so that's why I have these section containers set up to where this section is always full horizontal width, and then the container centers that column. So I know I want to make the full section white. I can just go to just this section and add an inline style. And I could add a class and do more, and maybe I would switch this into a class later. But for now, it's that simple. I don't even have to write background color. I can make it simpler by saying background white. Now what I normally do is something more like this, which is saying white, but in a computer way to say it. But so many, I don't know how many colors in CSS, so many colors, you can just type a name, even like really weird ones, and it works. But anyway, that would be, so now that's good to go. And it's starting to look closer. But I think the next step would be to plan a little more in my head what I want this page to look like before I actually start positioning and styling this stuff. The key thing is that the structure is set up, it's working. You click on a card now, it opens a new page. Oh, and I'll add that backlink before I finish up. But that's all we'll do today, I think. And then we'll be in a good spot for next time. So I'm just going to do this like this right now. I'm just going to drop a link in the top. And the link text is going to be my favorite little arrow emoji. And then back to list. And then the href is just slash because it's like the home page. And that's all I need that to be. There's not like a great reason to do that. Ooh, put it out of order. It's interesting. That's a bug that's fixed in production or in the new development environment. So that there's no reason to do that except for my own testing, like to move quickly. Instead of doing the browser back, I can just hit back to list and then click on a new one, you know. And this is delayed, so this is like that same delay I was seeing last time. All right, there it goes. So yeah, pretty good shape. And I'll either, or both maybe, but I'll either do categories and making that filter work next time, which is just going to be a matter of putting the action on, choosing two values, and then it's going to work. That's how that'll work. Like there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that I still need to figure out, but that's a thing that you figure out one time, that I figure out one time, and then everyone else just uses it. So really when I show categories, it's going to be so fast. And then I think we'll keep working on those single pages, and I'll make sure I have a plan as to like hierarchy and what I really want to show, because that'll be a big step. And you can see how fast I moved already. That should move a lot faster than the initial stuff we did on the homepage. But we'll see, because it's always slower than I think. So thank you once again for watching, and this will be up. I'll put this up a little bit later today on the page. The URL's in that black bar at the top, actually, on the page where I'm showing all the archived versions of this. And I'll be back on Friday at 1 o'clock Austin time. Thanks. Later.